Hello and welcome to this painting video. In this video we're going to share how to take some details of your high gladiatrix up to a parade ready level. The areas we're going to be focusing on are going to be the metallics, the reds as well as the skin. Now as you can see here we've already painted up our high gladiatrix up to a battle ready level, so check that video on how we did that. Now the first section we're going to focus on is going to be the metallics, and we're using iron hand steel just to add a bit more lightness to that silver armour, and then we're going to get Stormhost silver to highlight both the gold and the silver. So what I'm going to do is just load up my palette with a little bit of iron hand steel, a little bit of water so it's not too thick and goopy, and then once I'm happy and got my brush up to a decent point, we're then ready to start painting out those raised areas. So what I'm going to do is, like I said, is just add in a little bit of lightness to that silver so it makes it a little bit more blingy. Now that we've tidied up the silver, what we're now going to do is start highlighting both the gold and the silver. So I'm just going to start working my way around with Stormhost silver. Take your time, and if you make any mistakes you can always tidy back up with those previous colours. With those metallics now highlighted, what we're now going to do is move on to our reds. Now we're going to start first with some tidy ups. On the whip or the red leather we'll be using Word Bearer's red. Then for the loincloth we'll be tidying that up with Mephiston red. After that we'll move on to our highlights. Now I'll be using Squig Orange for the whip, and then moving on to Wild Rider red, followed by Bestigor Flesh for the loincloth. But first of all let's start with our tidy ups. So I'm going to be getting some Word Bearer's red, just apply a little bit to the palette, a little bit of water, a decent point, and then all we're going to do is then start tidying that up, because with the shades on there and the contrast it is quite dark, so in some places we're just going to add a little bit more punch to that red leather. As you can see I'm not going all the way to the edge, that gives it a nice blend. With the whip tidied up, what we're now going to do is start tidying up on the loincloth, and for this we'll be using Mephiston red. So I'm just going to tilt that a little bit so you can see what's going on. Again, I'm just picking out those raised areas, leaving that dark Mephiston red in the recesses. With the loincloth now tidied up, we're going to move on to our highlights. And the first thing I'm going to do is get Squig Orange and start highlighting the whip. I'm just going to take my time and just pick out one edge on the actual whip. I'm going to make sure it flows in the same way so it looks like the light's touching it all the way around. With the whip now highlighted, what we're now going to do is move on to highlighting the loincloth. So I'm going to start first by using Wild Rider red. Again, just be neat as possible, and if you make any mistakes you can always tidy back up with some Mephiston red. With the highlight of Wild Rider red now done, we're just going to finish off with a little bit of Bestigor Flesh. I'm just going to do this on tips and just around some of the corners or just the fine edges. Not too much. Do a couple of little dots there so it looks a bit frayed and tatty. With that highlight now done, our red details are finished. So what we're now going to do is move on to the final area, which is the skin. Now I'm going to use the same paints we used in the Battle Ready video. So I'm going to start first with grey sear. This is like a bit of a layer and a highlight in places. Then we're going to knock that back by using some Golem Flesh thinned down with contrast medium, and then finish off with a fine, real fine highlight around cheeks and extremities like the nose and the brows, using a little bit of grey sear again. But first of all, let's start with that tidy up and layer. So all I'm going to do is just thin that down. A little bit of water, get myself a decent point. I'll add a little bit more water, that's better. And then just spin my brush a couple of times until I get a decent point. And then we're ready. So what I mean by like a little layer and tidy up, all we're going to do is just pick out some of those raised details. Like I said, it's kind of like a highlight, just a little bit broader. So we've got a little bit of definition. Again, take your time, work your way around. Now that we're lighting the skin with that layer of grey sear, what we're now going to do is move on to doing our contrast medium and Golem Flesh mix. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up my palette with 4 paintbrushes worth of contrast medium. That's 3 and then 4. Give my brush a quick wash and a wipe. I'm going to get 1 paintbrush of Golem Flesh. Just mix that together. It's nice and thin, and all we're doing here is going to coat that all over just to knock back some of that tone. As you can see, all I'm going to do is just start coating all over. Again, where it's already dark, it's going to make it slightly darker, and where we've just tidied up and lightened up, we're just knocking that back ever so slightly. That's giving us even more definition. With that contrast medium and Golem Flesh mix now applied, we're just going to finish off with a couple of little subtle highlights here and there. So things like the nose, the brows, the ears, the knuckles. And this is going to have a little bit more definition. And there we are, those details we picked out on the High Gladiatrix are now parade ready. Now by following the methods and techniques in this guide, you can easily transfer this to other models in your collection. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoy painting your own High Gladiatrix, and we'll see you again soon. Bye bye.